Magic is what happens when peace is near.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Season 8 of Enlightened Conversations. This season we're diving into all things 7D consciousness, what it is, what it isn't, and how it shows up in our everyday life. I'll also be sharing concepts from my new book, Pieces of Science, towards a unified peace theory, as we explore the fascinating overlaps between spirituality, human behaviour, consciousness, and how we can integrate more peace into our lives. So, without further ado, let's dive in.
Together we are clear.
Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here, and welcome to Enlightened Conversations. I'm really pumped actually. This episode is a nice little addition, I'm going to say an amplification of our previous episode. We're calling it 7D Creation Mastery, Ripples Beyond the Universe. And today I'm joined by our wonderful panel that we've been working with this season. Karen Roberts, Chris Childs, Sathiavanni, Leanne Barefoot Medium, and Willow Roberts. These beautiful beings are joining me once again to answer the same question in their own voice. Building on last week's conversation about the power of process, we'll be exploring what happens when conscious creation extends beyond personal growth and begins influencing the wider collective field. Together, we'll discuss how intention, attention, and aligned action create ripples that reach far beyond ourselves, and how each of us can become more conscious creators in the relationships, communities, and systems we touch and we don't touch. And to kick us off, Willow Roberts is answering our first question. How does conscious creation ripple beyond the individual?
I think it just does, and people don't understand it. I think that all spiritual people know that we just ripple out our stuff around it. I think that visually, with my mortal eyes, I've seen it in Egypt. The Egypt trip that I did years ago really blew my mind. Blew me apart, actually. It took a while for it all to come back together. But I was in maybe Dendra, and I was looking, and I seen the other dimension with my mortal eyes, and it looked like a heat haze, but vertical and more transparent than water. I think once you understand your energy and you're working with your energy, and you get shown so much stuff, and you have all of those deja vu moments and God bumps and all the rest, it just becomes part of your nature, that you just know that it ripples out and that everybody else can feel what you're feeling if you don't, own your own power.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, Linda. It just does, right? Yeah, it's true that the more we choose to notice it, we do. And I think that that's an important point to make. If we're not open-minded to it, it's easy not to see it because we're blocking it out. But if we are open-minded about it, it's something that we can notice really I wouldn't say easily, but I'd say it becomes easier. Now let's hear from Leanne.
The word legacy is coming up for me, and what that means is, as souls, we each have a legacy that we're here to bring to the world. Some of those are really massive and big and on a global scale. Some are community-based, some are family-based. And so your legacy is what you're here to master and to leave behind for the next generation and the next and the next and the next and the next. What you do and what you master in this lifetime impacts 7 generations forward. So what is it that you want to leave as a legacy for the 7 generations in front of you? Is it a beautiful, connected, loving, empathetic, compassionate life? Or is it a struggle, difficult, challenging, really hard life in amongst it? So you get to choose what legacy you leave behind.
Yeah, in our very 3D reality, we do. we literally do. Our DNA cells have indicators that turn off and on depending on our stresses and our peace and our inflammation and whole heap of things. So yes, very much so on a 3D level. And also I had this thought as you were talking, Leanne, if I come back into form and I come back into my family in some way, my lineage, into my own lineage, it'll be interesting if I'm discovering my great grandmother's work, which is me or something, and that impacting my future self and learning and remembering, and it's almost like teaching myself again where I need to be up to so that I can continue. I just had that thought. I thought that'd be cool. I wonder if that's already happening. It probably is. All right, let's hear from Chris.
Everything we create really influences someone beyond us. Ideas spread through conversations and books. It spreads through everything we do, like business and art and technology. So from a consciousness perspective, really every action sends out a ripple through the system. So when people create something meaningful, helpful, or really inspiring, that ripple moves through other people and then they pass it on, and it passes on again and again. So human progress really has always happened this way. Someone creates something and then someone else improves it, and before long, the entire movement appears. So conscious creation's probably never just personal expression. It comes from contribution.
Yeah, that brings me back to the thought I had in the last podcast episode of like, is anything ever really original, or is it just kind of like we're all connected anyway and we're just plugging into the information that we're ready for or that needs to speak through us so that it impacts the collective field? It is a really interesting thought, and I'm going to sit with that one a bit more. And I do respect and honor everybody's work, and I acknowledge it, if I'm writing about it or have you, but there's this other side of it, in the creative process that is intriguing. Is anything ever really original? All right, let's hear from Sathiavanni.
How it does ripple beyond the individual is to know that, as there are multiple universes, galaxies and so forth. So it is very much, you're just kind of hitting, it's just the icing on the cake type of thing, or you're just tipping just the tip of it. So there is the more, so if you want to give it as an example, is like if you've got, 5 different universes and one is the one who's doing the work, everything has like a little tick, yep, okay, and it triggers that one, and then it triggers that one, and it triggers that one. So that is the ripple effect that is happening on the bigger picture that is happening. It's a bit like, I don't know, it's like a Tetris game, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way. It is very much about that, because ultimately it is, as soul evolution, we're in. Okay.
Yeah, I can feel that and think that too, that as I change something now, like in the here and now, I'm actually liberating and educating my past and future selves in different timelines. I can actually feel that happening because there's a lightness to healing that occurs after the healing that feels like you're rewriting the story and you're changing history. So I agree. In that 7D awareness, creation, including the healing in that process of creation, impacts not only other people and those, you could say, the surrounding communities around us, wherever we are in those parallel universes or timelines. And it's changing not only ourselves, but that whole community around us at the same time, because that's how systems work. All right, let's move on to Karen.
Conscious creation is for me, allowing myself to be really conscious and present with myself and whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm creating, in whatever way that is, if it's to do with work or my business or personal intentions, family. When we're really, really conscious, there's a flow that, again, goes beyond the physical body. And to me, I always remind myself, I have no idea how big or how expansive or how far this will reach and ripple out into the universe.
Yeah, I think apart from being intrigued with how it all works, I also think having humility on board like that, Karen, I have no idea who this is going to impact, is super cool. Both from a detachment perspective, so I'm not attached to the result, but then also a faith perspective, because I have faith that this will reach what's required to reach at the same time. So therefore it's very powerful to be present with what I'm doing so that I remain connected to that faith. I think that's a really good one. I like it. It's juicy. All right, let's move on to our next question, which is, how does process, intention, and attention amplify energetic impact? Wow, it's a big one. And first up, we have Linda.
Well, we're magnets. When we're manifesting, we're magnets, and it's about our vibrational frequency. So whatever vibrational frequency that you're connecting at, that's what you're attracting. That just automatically comes in. We're a mirror. It's, you just see it everywhere, like the car parking angels and all those, everybody's got it. I spoke to a businessman on a flight home one day, and he owned this really big business in Australia, and he asked me what I did, and I told him, and he said, "Oh, I don't believe in that." And I said, "Oh, don't you?" And he said, "No." And I said, "When you're doing hiring, or you're, doing something new, and if you had a gut feeling not to hire that person, would you hire them even though their resume was good?" And he said, "Yeah, I go on my gut feeling." And I said, "That's your intuition." We all have it. It's only whether we've built it up or we haven't, to how much we're putting out into the world, and how much it ripples out. And that changes your processes. That changes how you do things, because you're aided. When I speak, I always call in Archangel Gabriel and Thoth, because they help me with my words, with my writing. Sitting in the cave where John wrote the book of Revelations, I walked in and took my shoes off, and everybody's looking at me, and I felt like a bit of a twit, but anyway, don't like shoes anyway. And I was sitting there, and I was having trouble thinking about writing my first book. And the person that was up speaking about it, the tour guide, was sort of saying that when John wrote the book of Revelations, he had a scribe. He actually spoke the words, and I thought, "Oh, that's how I'm going to do it. That's what I'm going to do." But it was like everybody else went out of the room, and the light just zoomed in on me, and it was like just a message for me. So you see it, and it ripples out no matter where you are. You could be anywhere in the world, and you will feel somebody's energy or a process to something, and it just happens automatically because you're tapped in.
Yes, sometimes we are at the end of the ripple for ourselves to create our own ripple. I love that. That's mind blowing. Thanks, Linda. Okay, let's hear from Leanne.
So process, intention, and attention. I'll start a little bit backwards if I can. So everything starts with intention, and intention is more powerful than a wish or a desire. It's a "I will," or a "this is what's going to happen." It's a knowing of that's what's going to be. And so everything starts with that. We then have a process through our intuitive knowing and our nudges from source, divine consciousness, whatever, that we follow to get there, to bridge that gap between where we are and where we want to be. And in amongst that, we have to place our attention on words, thoughts, feelings, actions that are aligned with getting us there. And so what we place our attention on or our energy to, what we focus on, grows. So if we're focusing on lack, it'll grow. If we're focusing on enoughness or joy and happiness, it'll grow.
Yes, intention helps us to align with where we want our direction, our navigation to be. And the how is often what trips people up. Oh, how am I going to get there? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? How am I going to... And we get caught up in the worry and the wondering around that. And all you need to do really is turn up to the one thing at a time. And if the how doesn't feel right, you shift gears and you try something else. And if that doesn't feel right, then you shift gears and you try something else. And it's about trial and error a lot of the time. But if your intention stays on track, this is what my intention is. I intend to have a higher frequency, for instance, or I intend to paint a painting. You start, it doesn't work, doesn't matter. Keep going. I remember something my songwriting teacher told me, and she said, just keep writing. Don't stop. Just keep writing. Just keep writing. It doesn't have to be a perfect song. Just keep writing. And that really helped me because it's about not trying to make everything perfect. Just keep going. Just keep swimming, like Dory said in Nemo. All right, let's hear from Chris.
Well, in NLP, we often say that where attention goes, energy flows. So when someone's fully present with what they're creating, the quality of their work changes. And then intention really starts to shape direction. It shapes focus, and the process determines the consistency of the result. So when those three elements align, people tend to produce work that carries clarity. Tongue twisted. So when it carries clarity, it usually has purpose and it aligns. The alignment is often what people describe as flow.
I'm going to try it, Chris. Carries clarity. Oh, almost got it. Yeah, I like that. And I also like alignment creates flow. That's great. Or you could look at it the other way around, but I think it both feeds each other, doesn't it? Okay, let's hear from carries clarity. Let's hear from Sathiavanni.
How it does is intention and attention go side by side. So it's a great question because these two energies of conduct or steps you take or operate from, I should say, are key to your awareness, awakening, and lessons that you will learn. Okay, what is the intention here? What is the outcome? So, for example, if you're doing something with the intention of greed, it's going to fail. Okay, on a soul level, your soul is not going to operate on greed. So, if you're on a human level going to operate on greed, it's going to fail. So, that is the process here. So, each time you're going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. So, they are the key factors of that. Oh, okay, I need to tweak. Oh, okay, no, that's not how I need to operate here. So it's about what is more fulfilling on a soul level is what you're going to learn.
Yeah, and from a perspective of feeling into where we're operating from, if it's from a wound, often we can plug into society's wounds as well. So hence the greed thing that you mentioned there, Sathiavanni. If we are operating from our not enoughness wound, like I never have enough, there is never enough, so I have to be greedy because I have a fear there'll never be enough, we can certainly do things that exacerbate that wound in everybody else. And we can encourage them and entice them through manipulation on a monetary level. And those things can be quite attractive and inviting because they're coming from a place that alleviates our fear temporarily. So those ripples can go out to manipulate people as well. And the more conscious that we become, usually from the fallout of our community, it often happens, that somebody, a leader, might entice a whole nation, but then the truth of that short-lived enticement becomes their lived experience of disappointment. And then from there, we learn, oh, okay, that person wasn't coming from the correct intention for us. They were coming from a place of greed. So it's a big one. I guess we can sum it up by saying, yeah, our intention does create our reality. And the wider reality often mirrors that back to us, the impact of that. Okay, let's hear from Karen.
In it being in a process and having an intention, a really clear intention of what I'm doing, what I'm intending, and having a very focused attention on that, it's giving energy to something. If we don't have that, if we're very scattered in our intention and our attention to something, then we're not giving it a lot of energy. So the outcome will mirror that there's not a lot of effort, of attention and intention. So yeah, really important, having a very clear intention that's also open and allowing a flow and a really conscious, focused attention. Yeah, it's really important. That brings probably far bigger results than we could imagine.
It sure does, Karen. It sure does. Just being in that in pure intention is so powerful in terms of how it affects us and how it affects our surrounding field. And actually that does bring us to this next question quite beautifully. How can listeners use creation to influence relationships, society, or collective consciousness? I know I've just talked about that in a way with Sathiavanni's comment with regards to greed, but I'm sure there's other more positive ways we can see that in society as well. So let's hear from Linda.
Well, it's you building your energy up with the Creator. You've got to do that first. You really need to have that strong connection, because you don't want to be, hurt people. You really need to do that work on yourself first to have that clear connection with the Creator before you even think about putting it out into the consciousness. So you really need to do that work on yourself. So it is about that solitary journey that you've got to go on. And then once you've done that work and you've worked on yourself, then you can put it out into the out to everybody. Every place that I've ever been to in the world, all the private accesses into sacred sites, I always go and I ask things for myself, but I ask things for humanity as well. And I know that that's coming from a place of unconditional love, and it's clear. So it's not trying to manipulate relationships or certain things, because you can't do it, because there's a third party. When we go up to the seventh plane, we can only ever do things for us. What we can do for other people is I can say, Creator, it is requested that you fill everybody watching this with unconditional love to every cell of their body. And if you say yes to that, you can receive that. But I can't do anything else to a third party member. That's as much as I can do. So there really is integrity and knowing, the rules of it, because they will take stuff from you. There is spiritual laws.
Yeah, and this is an interesting topic in Pieces of Science. We do talk about sovereignty, and we do talk about our choice in life and our destiny in life and how that can change or be impacted, and the kind of soul contracts we might make with ourselves to learn these particular lessons in this lifetime. And we might have made those soul contracts with other individuals too, to help to impact our purpose and to help us achieve our growth and our goals. So that's a big topic. The thing that it always boils down to is willingness, and whether I have contracted that, yes, I want to learn this in this lifetime, or even change that along the way as to whether outside energies influence me in the way that they could profoundly influence me. It's always down to willingness. Now let's hear from Leanne.
Creation energy and frequency and vibration, or whatever you want to call it, is where we all come from. And so it's about everything and nothing all at once. It's about creation energy is all about love. because that's how we come to be. And so how we can use that to impact and transform or heal or manifest beautiful, amazing relationships in our world or society as a whole is look at what we bring to the table each day and bring love to the table each day.
I love that analogy, bring love to the table each day, Leanne, because we can consciously bring that into our decision making and our thought processes. Even when we're feeling angry, we can still invite love in and say, okay, I am feeling angry. Can you help me to find a way through this and to alleviate my anger or transform my anger or help educate me with my anger? And that way, because love is one of the 12 stabilizing principles of peace, we come to a place of peace more readily, and then that flows in and ripples out and amplifies out into the world. So it is a very powerful principle, this principle of love, in terms of being like an amplifier for peace. So let's now hear from Chris.
So I suppose creation doesn't mean inventing something world changing. It really can be simple as creating thoughtful conversations and helpful resources around what we succeed in doing ourselves. A little bit like when I finally worked out this goals and values alignment, I started teaching it with a passion. I would do workshops on it. I would, it was just such a momentous thing for me. And the other momentous thing was learning about how to remove limiting beliefs, because I had these huge limiting beliefs back when you knew me, when I was at my wealth retreats and standing on stage and everyone was going, yay, and big applause at the end and whatever. I believed that was all BS. I really did. I had a huge limiting belief that my stuff wasn't good enough, that people didn't like me, that people wouldn't want to be around me, that, I had all of these limiting beliefs, and my staff were perplexed as to how I could think that, because everyone was so blah, blah, blah. And I would go, yeah, no, that's rubbish. So my internal belief was I had these limiting beliefs that I wasn't worthy. I wasn't good enough, and my information wasn't good enough. When I removed that limiting belief, and so even though 100 people would be there, right? 100 people would be there, and 98 of them were just in awe and thought I was amazing and had me on a pedestal. 2 were a bit, whatever, or complained or whatever. The 2 were correct, because what happened was I would hear the 100, the 98 would get rejected by my critical factor. That's BS. That's BS. And then the complaint would come in and it would flow all the way down and crush me, and I would believe it. Yeah, see what I mean? See, I told you, and I believed it. So I think once I learned how to remove that limiting belief, and I realized that was rubbish, and that I started listening to the 98 and rejecting the 2, my life literally changed again. So those were the 2 huge changes that I learned, that influenced everything I did. It influenced my relationships. It influenced, how I teach. It influenced who I connect with and what changes I make to the world, because that happened to me. So, absolutely glorious. So therefore, small contributions repeated over time, and like those 2 contributions that I can give to communities, cultures, people, groups, I'm just constantly talking about it, teaching it, finding people who had the same situations and showing them, because I feel if we can change someone's life, if we can introduce or remove limiting beliefs, for example, or teach someone how to achieve their goals, and we change people, we can change the world one person at a time.
I really appreciate you sharing your story and your intimate process with us, Chris, on that, because I think a lot of people can relate. And I love how you're allowing your own healing to be an amplification to create ripples of healing for other people. That is a beautiful example of stewardship in 7D consciousness and creating healing ripples. Now let's hear from Sathiavanni.
When you create for yourself first, not to please someone or something. You're creating because you're honoring something that is being activated in you, that is fulfilling you. So do it for you, and in that vibration, what you're creating is going to have a positive impact on those around you, because it's coming from a space of your truth, and your light is what is going to be experienced in that piece of art, or that beautiful music composition, or that lyric. It's going to have an effect because it's about you. But in that intent part of your self-healing, that you wrote that song, is going to have resonance to somebody else who hears it. Okay, so always go back to you.
It's so funny because when I was doing this recording with Sathiavanni back in March, I hadn't even started writing any songs yet. And it's like she was tuning into my future self and talking to me then. I didn't even realize it at the time. I had no clue that I'd be writing songs. So it's kind of cool to listen to it back, hey? And it kind of makes me feel like she's talking to you guys the way it happened to me. It's like just creating things for yourself. Like I have been creating this podcast for myself as a discovery, then created a ripple effect for my future self to learn. And of course, that music is influencing a lot of people now and is out there to help them. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also going to make mention that sometimes we're standing on the edge of the frame with our creating. And no one might ever hear it because it might be too advanced, or people are not really clicking into that yet because they're not quite caught up with the vibrational frequency that we're emitting. And don't stop because other people aren't connecting with it. Just know that as you are sitting in that, even if it's the edge of the frame and it's benefiting you, like Sathiavanni has been talking about, that it will ripple forward. Maybe not in this lifetime, who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, maybe 5, maybe it's your children's children. Maybe it's yourself coming back reincarnated and it's affecting you again. Who knows? But it's really great to just be in the process and give yourself over to the process that's calling you. Okay, now let's hear from Karen.
Using creation from that space of being really heart-centered and wanting the best for ourselves and for others has such an impact on relationships, society, because we're taking ourselves into something, we're communicating in certain ways, we're emitting certain vibes, and we know from experience, when different parts of us, if we've been angry, the results we get, how that impacts relationships, how that impacts us if we go out into the world, when we're really conscious about the space that we're in, of being in a really heart-centered space. That has such an amazing impact when we go into the world, in our relationships, our communication style, what we take out into the world. And it brings results to us based on that.
Yeah, I agree, Karen. I think coming from that heart space, we do create and manifest outcomes. They come back to us for sure. Those ripples, they don't just go out, they come on back. So now we're going to move on to the next question, which is what techniques or practices enhance energetic impact? Let's start with Linda.
We joke around that our body's full of 75% water, but it really is, water is energy. I when I do at workshops and at the festivals, I read people, they put their hands in water and then they slowly take it out, and then I put my hands in and I read the excess energy that's left over from them. Water and being hydrated is so important. It's so important with the planetary alignments, full moons, whatever. I don't think, and it's being hydrated is really like I put Celtic salt in my water of a morning because our bodies really need that salt. It really needs hydrated. I think your connection and being clear, that's the most basic thing that you can do is stay hydrated, but hydrate with that, that salt in it so that you are getting hydrated. Once you do that, you'll be surprised how much clearer your third eye and your channel and higher chakras are when you're connecting to the creator. It's amazing. I stand in water, although water's always been my thing. If I stand in water, I let it go. I ever stood in Loch Ness. I ran down to the water at Loch Ness in Scotland once and took my shoes off and stood in the water, and it was bloody freezing. And my sister said, "What are you doing?" And I went, "Connecting to mum and dad." Mum and dad's ashes are in the river at a place called Anson's Bay in Tasmania. But anywhere I go in the world, I put my feet in the water and I feel the connection to everywhere. And it's just, I think it's so important. And I think that people don't talk about it often. They think that it's something else that they've got to add in, but that is certainly one of the basic and the biggest things.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things that when Linda started talking, I didn't see it coming, but there's just been so many studies in the power of how frequency is carried in water as well, from a scientific perspective, how even music affects water, and obviously we're full of water, so what we listen to on the tones level affects us. Yeah, I think staying hydrated is a good one. Let's hear from Leanne.
Okay, I'm going to take a different spin on this. Cleansing and clearing your own energy. And energy for me is just about words, thoughts, emotions, actions, knowledge, wisdom, skills, abilities, and monies and energy as well. So cleansing and clearing whatever limiting beliefs, stories, heavy emotions or traumas or woundedness that we have there, or sabotage patterns, is what's required in order to be a better version of ourselves every day. And so whether that's, taking a smudge stick and sage and saging yourself, or crystals, or using words or energetic healing practices, whatever feels right for you.
Yeah, removing the noise or removing anything getting in the way of our energetic impact is super important. And in order to do that, we need to get honest. That's one of our stabilizing principles for peace. And I actually wrote a song about it. Is it signal? Is it noise? And or signal over noise is the song. And it's about identifying the noise or the signal so that we can actually amplify the signal of peace, and the signal of love, and the signal of joy, and the signal of whatever is coming through and what is our truth. So let's hear from Chris.
I reckon clarity of purpose helps enormously. When people know why they're doing something, I know why I am telling everyone who will listen about goals and values alignment. It's just, or what's holding them back, these limiting beliefs that are just old patterns. So I think clarity of purpose, I know that's what I'm here for. And I know that for years you've already been in this same world, and the difference you make to people, so your purpose. So once you know your purpose, and my original purpose, which I did for many years, was helping people change their financial worlds. And I did that in a big way. Retired. And then when I 2 years of travel and enjoyment and fun, and it came to me, I have another purpose. My purpose now is in teaching people how to improve their own lives. So I think clarity of purpose is probably the biggest thing, because things that you do like that, they compound over time. As I said, change someone's life, and you really have given something different to the world.
I can relate to you, Chris. I feel that even in my retirement now, it's just, obviously I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not financially dependent on it. I'm just really enjoying the grooviness of being able to share what I know and hope that that touches souls moving forward. That's a beautiful thing in service in my retirement and in joy and coming from a place of non-attachment. Let's hear from Sathiavanni.
Again, it's simple. It's quite the mind. When you quieten the noise and just to be still is when you're going to hear the universe talking to you through your senses, through the feelings that you get. Silence. That's where truth lies. Silence.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself. I had to play Signal Over Noise again because it's like, yes, this is again coming through for us to hear about clearing away the noise. And we've talked about water, we've talked about clearing that noise away, we've talked about clarity of purpose, we've talked about this noise and reducing this noise. This helps us become amplifiers of the signal that we want to put out there into the world and to create those momentous ripples that change. In order to do that and have that amplification, we need to be clear channels and clear signals. Let's hear from Karen.
Techniques and practices for me are meditation, being really conscious. I have a set of statements that I repeat in my mind each morning about my life, different parts of my life. So these practices, building on them each morning, the consistency, the repetition of them means that I'm building that muscle, the expansive muscle within me that is taking me on the path that I want to be on in this life, expanding that path for me. So those practices for me, anything that is, I guess, connecting in a deeper way into ourselves, being more intentional, more conscious, more heart-centered. So I heard something a little while ago, and it was, if we do intentions, just say, oh, I feel really light and joyful today. If we're not in that space, we have that little voice in the back of our head that says, no, I don't. I feel actually really miserable today. So I heard that instead of doing an affirmation, you could say, why do I feel so light, so open today? And our unconscious mind has to then bring the reasons why, bring answers. And I remember listening to it thinking, oh, that's such a beautiful shift of perspective of doing affirmations in the way of a statement. So for me, it'll be around, why do I have such beautiful connections with my family, with my kids that support mutual growth, that are filled with joy, filled with deep respect. How am I living my dream life as my happiest, healthiest self, and sharing love, light, healing, abundance, and joy with more and more people. So there are a few of the things that I do, but it sets my day up in I feel grounded. It helps me to ground into who I am and what I'm here to do.
Beautiful. Any guidance for sustaining alignment and flow over time?
Yeah, consistency, repetition. Again, it's that muscle. People go to the gym to build muscle. If you just go once every 6 months, you're not going to do a huge amount. It's repetitions, consistency, daily little practices. And as I've said earlier, they can be little things. They don't have to take a lot of time. For so many people, we can feel that there's not a lot of time. So little things, being aware of our breathing, that can be a really simple thing. because we can find we breathe quite shallowly a lot in life. Let's be aware of the breath. Go for a walk in the morning. Spend 5 minutes walking if you need to. Spend 5 minutes doing some meditation, but repeat. Consistency. Build the strength in the practices that you're doing.
Yeah, I was thinking when you started talking about saying those statements over and over at the beginning of the day, I was thinking, oh, I must talk about when the part of our brain comes into play and goes, no, you don't. Why do you feel that? No, you don't. I don't know. And so you really answered my question as you were talking by how you're actually going about talking to yourself in a positive way. I think that's brilliant. Well done. All right, we're up to our last question, which is any guidance for sustaining alignment and flow over time? And I actually forgot to ask Linda this question, and so we're moving straight on to Leanne. Apologies to you, Linda.
Ooh, this is where the wobble happens, right? So, when we're learning to be, or when we're being invited to step into an expanded and different version of ourselves, we often experience the wobble, which is us learning to be the new expanded version of ourselves that consciousness or source knows already exists and our human self hasn't caught up to speed. So how do we, if we've got that wobble going on, whether it's doubt, confusion, uncertainty, overwhelm, or any of those things, just be present to it, be really compassionate and kind to yourself, and take steps to reduce the wobble every day until you integrate and step into and embrace that expanded version of you.
Yeah, and I think it's good to be just honest. I'm having a bit of a wobble day or a wobble moment, and I'm just getting used to it. It's a bit like wearing a new pair of shoes. I'm just getting used to this new pair of shoes at the moment. And if you can't articulate it, that's fine. If people want to know where you're at and say, look, I'm just climatizing to my new realities, keep it really simple. You don't have to go into a whole lecture about it. Okay, now let's hear from Chris.
I think keep returning to the reason you started. Because when people reconnect with their purpose or the purpose of what it is, that they were trying to achieve, motivation tends to follow it. And it's funny, motivation, people sort of go, oh, as soon as I'm motivated, I will do whatever. Whereas actually action needs to happen first and motivation follows it. Whereas people think I need to be motivated to get the action. It's actually the opposite way around. So it also helps to maintain balance, and rest and reflection and curiosity actually allow creativity to renew itself. So you don't have to be on all of the time. Flow isn't something we force. It's something that actually emerges when conditions are right.
That's true. That's so true. Creative juju is something that occurs once you start something because it often feeds itself. Like peace is recursive, peace builds on peace. So does creative juju. It's kind of like this phenomena. So once you turn up and you start, it kind of takes over. Like you might want to remember your intention so it keeps you motivated, or it reignites why you keep turning up to it. But often what happens is the project itself takes on a life of its own and it starts to take you by the hand instead of you kind of trying to gear up and get it happening. So it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon. Okay, now let's hear from Sathiavanni.
Food. The food you eat and the quality of food and how you eat the food, how you fuel yourself, is going to be key as well, because your physical body will repel certain types of food that's cooked in a certain way and so forth, because you have to have the right types of food. So if there is something if there's one thing your food will be emphasized even more and more, because it has to be high vibrational food.
And whatever that looks like for you is unique too. And I've learned that over the years working with people. Some people need to eat meat. Some people can't handle dairy. Some people don't dig sugar. They just can't work with it. So everybody's different. I'm a vegetarian, have been since 2019 Boxing Day, but I still have oysters, mussels, clams, anything without a face, and it feels right for me. So that's kind of where I'm at, and it feels right for me. But I just feel like food comes in different forms too. Like the frequency that we're around is food. Talking about the creative process, the actual creative juices feed you once you get started. So food comes in lots of different forms. And now we're going to move on to Karen.
Yeah, consistency, repetition. Again, it's that muscle. It's people go to the gym to build muscle. If you just go once every 6 months, you're not going to do a huge amount. It's repetitions, consistency, daily little practices. And as I've said earlier, they can be little things. They don't have to take a lot of time. For so many people, we can feel that there's not a lot of time. So little things, being aware of our breathing, that can be a really simple thing, because we can find we breathe quite shallowly a lot in life. Let's be aware of the breath. Go for a walk in the morning. Spend 5 minutes walking if you need to. Spend 5 minutes doing some meditation, but repeat. Consistency. Build the strength in the practices that you're doing.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is that creative flow and the principle of discipline, which is one of our 12 stabilizing principles for peace, actually hold hands here, because discipline in a good way is that rhythm and that routine and turning up for ourselves and just being willing. And I think that it starts the gear up, and then the creative flow takes over and feeds ourselves so that we become more creative. So it's a beautiful thing, turning up for ourselves. I've really enjoyed this episode, and next week we are covering the embodiment of 7D consciousness in daily life and how we integrate it into our daily life. We're talking about how we can remain grounded and present daily, how we can influence personal and collective alignment with our creative flow. We're talking about how technology and media can be used consciously. We're talking about integrating trauma awareness into daily living, and also outlining a framework where we can embody 7D awareness into our everyday lives. So I hope you can join us, because it feels very integrative, and after all the things that we've learned across this series, it feels like it's really bringing it all back down into our body and helping us integrate it really well together. So big love to you all. Have a beautiful day, and choose signal over noise. Big blessings. Peace in, peace out.